Welcome to the Jungle Brothers podcast, guys. It's me, Joey. We got Paulie in the house.
What's up?
He's serving the coffee right now, and we got JT with us today.
Oh yes, in the place to be.
Welcome, bro. How are you?
Oh, I'm ecstatic. I'm so stoked to be back on here because I actually feel it might be, allowed, but I feel like I belong here.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm part of the JB crew now, officially.
Yeah, this is your first potty with us since you've become a full-time coach at the gym.
Yeah, that's right. And it's awesome because I've spent a bit of time here and obviously no less excitement. I always feel excited to come up in here and be on the podcast. But now having been here for a good 5 months and being in the place a lot and being around everybody, man, it's a good vibe.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's you like how I make it feel like we're just catching up? It's
Yeah.
like, hey, haven't seen you for ages.
Oh,
like, welcome to
wow.
the podcast. Whereas, like, we did a podcast for Bulletproof like 2 days ago.
Yeah, that's right.
JT and I have we shot some content this morning, so we've been talking all fucking day.
Stop looking at me.
Yeah. Good to see you, man.
Hey,
how you been?
Yeah, God, how's the baby?
No, that's cool, man. Yeah, so I guess to give folks a bit of background, you moved up from Melbourne at the beginning of the year?
I did. Actually, it was just, in truth, as soon as the kind of lockdown came off and they opened the borders, we were looking to move up around the kind of 10th of December last year. Came up just before Christmas, living with my parents, and then looking for a place and officially moved in to SYD, Sydney in Zetland, 2nd of January.
Sick.
It's been great. Sydney's been so good to us. I think there was a little bit of apprehension between myself and my partner, Ola. But, man, it's been so good to be here at JB's, and I think it was definitely the right move.
What were the apprehensions moving cities?
I think Melbourne's a great city, and because we spent a lot of time there, it was a bit unknown. So, I mean, I didn't really, even though I grew up in Sydney as a teenager, I didn't get to spend much time as an adult. So I don't really know the city that well. And I think it's a very different city now. When I left, I was 21, it's 15, 16 years later, and then it's a different city. But also this area, Botany, is coming up. It's on the come up, right?
Yeah.
So
cool
it's really
Botany's
nice.
strong.
It is cool. And everything. There's so many good aspects to Sydney that I think are underrated. I think there's lots of people, don't get me wrong, I'm definitely the first person to say, oh, Melbourne's a better city. But that said, now being in Sydney, I'm like, oh, having nice weather is a significant upside. Wow, like it really literally outshines a lot of other features.
You'll be in the Goldies soon.
Yeah, well, no.
2 years here.
No.
Sunny all day, every day.
But I think it's one of those things that I think also having the Jungle Brothers community and also friends in the BJJ community up here has helped the transition for me. And then also, obviously having my partner engaged with the Jungle Brothers community has been awesome as well.
Yeah, it's cool. I guess the having a gym with a community like ours and just like a base where you can start to work and hang out and stuff. It's helpful, isn't it?
Yeah,
Like
definitely.
We talk about that a lot from like for our members, like that it becomes that place for them. Like they're obviously not plying their trade here and running a business out of it, but they are like, it gives them a space outside of work and home to come to, and they can hang with other good people and exchange information and just get some good vibes. And I think that really goes a long way.
Yeah, and I think that's it's possibly one of the most significant things is when you kind of uproot, you move cities. If you've lived in the city for a long time, you move to a new city, establishing your clique, your community, and just your general social connections, hairdressers, mechanics, just basic stuff that's in your life that you take for granted. And you're like, well, I don't know who to go to. But that's been a great thing, is just having a great network of people to connect into that. And jiu-jitsu being one of the best community builders. So also having Alliance BJJ, linking in with those guys, and even just my friends from other academies, Grappling Education. And there's been a few debunkers from Victoria who've moved north or south. And so been able to connect with other friends who I used to train with at Absolute MMA in Melbourne, in St Kilda, up here in Sydney, because they've moved up here, which has been cool.
Was that all a bit of a response to COVID?
Yeah, I think it was a massive response.
People leaving Melbourne?
Yeah, look, Melbourne's a great city, but when you can't engage in the city, it's just another place. And if you love jiu-jitsu, we get like someone like Ari who wants to train jiu-jitsu 6 hours a day, he's going to if you say he can't do jiu-jitsu, you'll see him commando, across enemy lines, hip escaping, shrimping his way through the jungle to make his way to New South Wales because he's going to train jiu-jitsu no matter what.
It's like the movie Heat. You guys remember Heat?
I do.
Where Robert De Niro's kind of mentoring. Is he mentoring Val Kilmer?
Yeah.
No, it's not Val. He's mentoring someone.
Yes.
About being a bank robber. And he's like, in this life, he's like, you got to be prepared to walk out on everything
That's
you know
right.
and love within 10 seconds and never look back. And it's like, Ari's like, for jiu-jitsu, I'll fucking do that.
That's right. Yeah. And to his credit, I've linked up with Ari and trained with him. He's a legend. And I've trained with Jeremy Skinner as well, who are like good guys I trained with at Absolute. And there's a few people who, even like Jess Fraser, she moved out of Victoria. And it's just one of those things that you miss those people who you have a connection with. But then at the end of the day, you are trying to live your life, and it's not like, it was war-torn. Like Melbourne wasn't that bad, but if you wanted to do jiu-jitsu, then there was no love there. And it definitely cured me of the idea that this is the only place to be, because I had always had it in the back of my head that even though the gym I was working at before, the Richmond gym, shout out the Richmond gym, James Ross, Ash, all the good guys there, is a great gym, but it was just a fraction not as cool as Jungle Brothers.
Oh.
No, it's great. If there was another gym you could train at that wasn't Jungle Brothers, you'd want to train there. They got great kettlebell training, barbell, body weight. They've got a great handstand coach.
Oh, they do a bit of body weight there?
Mate, they do a bunch of body weight.
Oh, that's cool.
They got a place to run a sled. You'd love it, Paul.
I know what's
Led me.
Yeah, it's mortifying, but it's great training. And it's a great place. But I think I've always had it in the back of my head, like, I wish I had a gym like Jungle Brothers. Mat upstairs, weights downstairs, great space. So to come here and be a part of that, and now be a coach here officially and be the BJJ coach head BJJ coach is a great honor. I'm stoked.
We're
cool.
stoked to have you here.
Pleasure.
I mean, yeah. And if anyone knows you, you can hear it in your voice if you're just hearing him now. You bring the energy. And that is something that not everyone has, and it's very unique, and you bring it in a certain flavor. And I mean, definitely you brought that to the jiu-jitsu program, and I mean, yeah, people are loving it right now and making a lot of progress there.
Well, I want to encourage people, because I think jiu-jitsu really changed my life. Even though Joe would probably not attest to this, it has made me more humble.
Just let your imagination wander for a moment. Try to picture
what I was like
a less humble JT.
terrible human.
so good.
But that being said, like, it has had such a big impact on me, and I've said this to Paul. I don't know if I've said this to you, Joe. I would teach jiu-jitsu for free, really. If I had another source of income that meant it didn't matter, I would still teach it, because I get such a joy from me being able to show a technique to someone and then see them make it happen. And you see that moment where their eyes pop a bit and they're like, I did it. I swept them. Oh no, I'm getting armbarred. That's a really cool moment, because then that has them believing in themselves more, believing in jiu-jitsu more, and buying in to this really cool journey wherever it takes them. So getting an opportunity to do that here is immense.
Yeah, you've brought, further to what Paul said, you've injected some energy into the program here, which is really awesome. I mean, looking at what, we've got the little band of female competitors.
Yes.
We've got Beck, Chloe, Fee. Am I missing anyone in there?
I mean, Noni left.
Noni left, but she's still in there.
She's surrogate.
Lucy.
Yeah, that's right. Lucy.
Yeah.
And these girls are not all of them are competing at every comp, but at least a few of those girls are competing at every opportunity they get.
Yes.
And it's really down to the support of you and Nate and Paul, just giving them giving them so much.
Yeah, and I don't want to take any credit for their enthusiasm. I think that's built off all the hard work that Paul and Nate have already done, and built them to their skills. But I'm just razzing them. I'm like, strangle these people, get G'd, steal some souls.
Trying to bring the animal out.
Yeah, because they're white belts, and they're way better than me when I was a white belt. They're so technical. I'm just like, now just get animal. You'll dominate. Like, all these other white belts, they're crap. And I just want to see kill them. Because like why shouldn't you? Like I just want to give them that encouragement. Like I just think like in reflection on my own, jiu-jitsu journey, I succeeded or I had whatever improvement I had in spite of the environment I was in, not because there was people around me going, man, you're really good. You should go a bit harder. It was people around me just trying to keep me down. And I was like, try and keep me down. I'll show you. Don't bring the demon out in me. This is my internal dialogue. But it's one of those things. But I think that I see them and I'm just like, man, they're so good. And so if they can be so good now, I'm really excited to see where it goes from here. And also the guys. The guys are tough. The guys probably don't get enough love. Shout out to Andy, who went in his first comp at the ADCC and won.
No, it was his second comp.
Oh, sorry, second comp.
Yep.
But did very well. He just had his wisdom teeth removed.
Oh, had he?
Like literally couldn't close his mouth and couldn't talk properly.
Oh, poor guy.
And he's got accent.
Yeah.
And he can't
Irish
speak.
lad.
Irish lad with like missing teeth. And
the guy's working like fucking 180 hours a week.
And he still shows up this comp and puts absolute crossfade smash on some unsuspecting guy.
Oh my Lord.
He told me he felt bad because the guy that he was matched against was quite a bit younger than him. But I was like, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. You
Same weight category.
Yeah.
No, I don't think they were.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, I mean they're approximate size, but Andy's a strong human.
Were they around the same size?
Ish, yeah.
Okay, I'd imagined it to be a smaller guy. But
No.
All right,
it
that's
just
fuck him.
you entered the comp. You came for the smoke. No, and I think the other good thing is because we have Paul, who is Paul Smivett, shout out, beatbox extraordinaire, yet to be proven.
Legend.
But breakdancing extraordinaire, definitely proven. Black belt under Joel Costello, good friend of ours.
No, he's not a black belt under Joel.
No?
He's a black belt under Felipe Grez.
Oh, okay, my mistake. I
Yeah.
apologize.
But he does coach with Joel.
He coaches with Joel
Yeah,
at Gracie,
Balmain, yeah.
Balmain. And, he's a great black belt, and he and I have had pretty in-depth chats, and we have very similar thought processes, but it's good for the students. They get exposed to Paul, they get exposed to Nate. Nate has his own orientations and flavor, and me too. So I think in that way, it's been good for everybody to get that variety. And now we're just expanding it, moving to have kids classes and, ultimately as we get more people, look to have, lunchtime classes and really grow it into a pumping little jiu-jitsu program.
That's cool.
It's a cool thing.
What, with that, like having different coaches and like naturally each coach is going to be imparting their kind of their game, their strategy, their sort of belief system. For people who don't know, like the sport of jiu-jitsu or the art of jiu-jitsu is so broad. There's so many things that you can work on. You can never truly master all of it.
Yes.
How does that work then when you have, say, a coach who is giving a set of information and then on another night that same student's coming and there's another coach and they might be giving, not that information is necessarily conflicting,
No.
but how does that play out?
So what we did was we sat down a little while ago under your guidance and suggestion that we get together and have our, we have our monthly meeting. We sit down and we discuss what's going on in the program, gradings, all of that kind of thing. And we have planned out 12 weeks under weekly themes. And they kind of complement each other. So in the way that we might have working close guard, we also have a week which is passing close guard. And so you get both sides of the coin. And what that means is they get exposure to different techniques and approaches to the same situation. So there's an opportunity for that person to work that game. I mean, when there's plenty of free rolling, so there's chances for them to do whatever game they want. But fundamentally, with the fundamentals class, there is that structure there. And then when it comes to like the more advanced students, the instructors are free to kind of riff and take it whatever direction they want, relevant to the questions of the higher or more experienced students. So I think what we've done is we've set up a structure, which means students know, okay, this week we're working on this thing. They'll get exposed to a variety of ideas, which is good. Like you said, I don't think anything's particularly contradictory in any way. It just might be a slightly different slant, like grip the belt like this or do this instead. And so that then broadens the student's idea of the concept. And then moving on from that, they get a chance to work on their own game. Like we always make time to have questions. And if anything, I'd say we spend a lot of extra time with students after class trying to help them with their individual game. So I think the good thing about it is they get more exposure to more ideas, but there's not the confusion of one day we're doing closed guard, next day we're doing bolo, next day we're doing choke. Like there is a theme, there's a chance for them to work through it, and then that is revisited within a 3-week period, a 4-week period.
Yeah, that's a common thing with jiu-jitsu schools. Isn't it? I remember, I think my learning was like that for many years, where it's like you just turn up on one class one night and they're teaching something, and then the next night coach is like, oh, let's work on this other thing, and it's kind of good, but really there's no sort of there's no forethought about like, oh, what's the process that I'm going to take these guys on over the next 6 weeks or 2 months or whatever it is. And you just end up picking up little bits of things. And then I think if you've got different coaches and they're taking that approach, it becomes a real mishmash, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think if we go back to like learning in terms of like primacy and recency, like when you like, we only remember the beginning and the end. We don't really remember what's in the middle. So if people know what they started the week with, and they know what they finished, or like what their first class was and what their last class was, and if that's consistent, even if they're practicing the same thing, that means at least they're getting a chance to get some reps in. Because in a class you're only going to get, a maximum of 20 opportunities or 30 opportunities to do that one thing without it being too boring. But then being able to say, okay, guys, what you should understand is when we're passing this guard as opposed to playing this guard, here's how we undo this knot. So the person still has an opportunity to play that guard, but they're defensive now, and the other person's really trying to pass their guard. So it's kind of both sides of the coin. When I was learning jiu-jitsu, my coach when I was purple belt, Dan Cherubin, he said to me, he was like, the better you understand how to pass a guard, the better you understand how to play a guard. Because he was like, knowing how to undo it is key to knowing how to do the knot tighter.
Yeah.
And so getting exposure to both things I think is important, and we factored that into our 12-week cycle for our beginners class. Now you, Paul, you are a blue belt. Now recently I heard some talk which may mean that you retire at that blue belt.
What's the talk?
Well, you just said, mate, I can't do jiu-jitsu, sorry. And I was like, are you that guy?
I hope it
Are you quitting it? Is it like
I was hoping you wouldn't come to this.
blue belt is the black belt for quitters? Are you that guy?
Savage.
I've been on this blue belt for long enough. Like, there's nothing to hide here.
Have you had your blue belt for longer than I've had my brown belt?
Maybe.
Wow, I didn't know. Really?
I don't know. Do
Maybe.
you remember when you got it?
I should know, but I don't.
Because
Yeah.
Paul actually rolls really well. Like Paul is actually, I would love to
Slick.
see him progress in jiu-jitsu, and it's just circumvent of running a gym and responsibilities. He can only do one class a week, if that.
Well, I was doing 2, it's not quitting. I'm going on a hiatus. I have to like chill for 3 months.
Okay.
Because I love your classes and also the off the mat stuff.
Appreciate that, man.
And I can see it in your eyes because it's, I want to please my coach, and you're basically, I know that I need to do more and you want me to come up. So I'm like, I'm doing it really badly. And currently, as you said, I'm juggling quite a few things at this particular moment.
No, I'm right.
And I was like,
it's
you know
okay.
what? I'm going to just chill.
It's okay.
I'm going to chill for a bit.
It's all right because I see you, right? When someone says to me, oh man, I can't come for XYZ reasons, and now I look at their Instagram, it's not XYZ reasons. You just don't want to be there. It's all right. Just tell me you don't want to be at class. That's cool.
Yeah.
Like, but for you, I understand. Like, we spend a lot of time together outside of jiu-jitsu.
Yes.
So I see all the work you're putting in. I see how much, you're doing in your life. You've got kids. You've got a lot of stuff. Mate, I have no responsibilities.
I still plan on coming and being a killer.
No, you are. But the
that's
thing
not
is,
off the-
you're a killer in waiting. You're like the sleeper agent. We just have to say the right safety word, like I don't know, tarot or something, and then he's engaged.
No.
Paul is engaged.
Turns into Michael Jai White.
Yeah, pretty much.
What you have to say is, we've run out of taro. And
But that's the thing. Like I see so much potential in so many people here. And the challenge for me is coming from a full-time jiu-jitsu gym.
Yes.
Where
Yeah.
I was saying this, people can't believe me here because they just don't. They're like, what? It's like when you go to Brazil and you see the passion of people and they're fighting to the death for no prize other than to win.
Bragging rights.
Just a role in the gym. I won.
Oh,
you
right,
can't
yeah.
take me down. You can't beat me. I'm just in the gym, a gym hero. No one will ever know their name. but they will absolutely fight to the death, right? That level of intensity and passion, I've seen it firsthand, and it's like really full on. Like people think I'm full on. I am toned down. I've learned to tone it down, right? I box it up. I tell it to the therapist.
Shout out, Ola.
She sedates me. She sedates me. She gives me food, pats me on the head, calms me down, makes me have naps.
Quiet time now, James.
Quiet, yeah. But I think it's on those things that, like, coming from absolute MMA in St Kilda, a Friday night, you might have 50 people on the mat.
Wow.
And I mean, obviously people peter off and go out for drinks and do whatever. And there would be a social crew, but people would just stay till kick out. Even once people
Getting
had
after
left,
it.
there was still 25 people still kind of wanting to
Milling around,
roll until it turned the lights off. Like, people just want to be there. And that's your social circle. And people are just so into getting better. And not all those people are competitors. But that's their clique. And I mean, I see it definitely like swole on Friday nights here at Jungle Brothers. Of course, why wouldn't you come in and get your pump on? It's a good vibe. You don't necessarily want to be upstairs getting like your back taken by me. And me, working my cross faces. But, like that said, I think that once people tap into that, I'm getting this, it feels good, I think I can get better at this. That is a hurdle people need to overcome, and that's what we're trying to do with the beginners, is get people past that stage of, I don't know if this is for me.
Yes.
Get them in and get them to that stage where they feel like they have a degree of agency, like they can learn, they can get better, and then they're on the path.
I think you're doing the right thing with the just giving them confidence and jazzing them up, or razzing them up, as you said.
I do.
And yeah, just giving them constant confidence, because I see it as like it's a tough thing to get over that first hurdle, or those first few hurdles.
Yes.
And I see it like with kids sport, if I can bring it back to my kids, and when you want them to do something and they enjoy doing it, but it's also very hard, and better than them because you've had the experience, you're an adult, that if they get past that, it's going to be great for them. They're going to love it. And this is what happened with my son with soccer. And it's just like, it's quite tireless encouragement and doing things to make him feel good, even incentivizing it because it's worth it for him. And then they break through, but it takes some time to get him to that stage. And now it's like, he's bugging me to go.
Nice.
But I think you're doing the right thing, like trying to pass them across that first little desert.
Yeah.
And it takes, that degree of encouragement.
Yeah. I think the metaphor,
Belief.
actually, Joey had mentioned it the other day, that jiu-jitsu white belts are babies. And you got to, they fall over. You got to, they're going to get back up.
Did I say that?
You did. You're not in you were talking about your son.
Yeah.
And you were talking about learning.
Yep.
And you were saying, you seem like he's just starting to understand things and talking about space of time, that you've got to be patient. Like, you're not going to learn to walk on your first day. You get up, fall down, crawl. There's so many baby steps, literally, in just being able to stand up, hold your head up, all that thing. And you're saying how, one day for a kid that's only been alive 7 days is huge. But as we get older, it shortens up, and we become more impatient because we expect things. And you're just saying, like, when you see the development in your son, that, we're looking at the development of people who are very inexperienced at a thing, whether it be S&C or jiu-jitsu or whatever it is. So we have to be patient. It is a process. And, I'm possibly the single most impatient person you've ever met in your life, to my own detriment. I do my own head in on how impatient I can get. And really, it depends on how well fed and how slept I am. I turn into a toddler. And I just have a tantrum. Why do I have to wait? Why can't I have it now? Like, I sometimes do. Like, I noticed the other day, I've started reducing my eating in the morning. Just as a thing, because no burgers for breakfast.
Because we've got a shoot coming up.
We do. I cannot have Joe. It's real. I can't have Joe coming in lean.
I'm looking like a fucking julienne salad right now. Son.
Ooh, dang. And I don't want to be
getting pumped this morning.
I don't want to be the fat brother. They're like, oh, he's the lean one. He's the fat one.
I want to know who's getting in the tanning bed though.
Well.
Have you seen the tan lines on this?
I have.
Some of the videos
right now, I'm good right now.
They were your removalist tan lines,
more
weren't they?
I'm more even than you right now. So I've been working on it.
That's the one that stands out the most.
Do you have a tanning bed, Paul? Does your client have a tanning bed?
She does, actually.
Oh,
No,
yeah,
she doesn't.
Suze,
She
amazing
doesn't.
tan.
She does not.
Eastern European skin.
Mate,
all year round.
whatever.
She's
She
Slovakian
makes you
Slovakian
look
or something?
light skinned, bro.
She's Hungarian, half something.
She's
oh my god,
the
she called
best
me out
tan,
for that.
like,
Yeah,
I know.
that amazing like European kind of like Northern European.
golden.
Yeah, it's a
blonde,
golden
blonde
tan.
hair,
Yeah.
blue eyes, just golden tan. I think it's one of those things,
Guys, if you got a tan, send pics.
I'll just get so jealous. I was just thinking that sometimes I do get impatient because the other day I was a bit curt. I was
Tell
a
us
bit
the story.
short. It's usually with guys, especially if I've explained something a couple of times and then somebody does it wrong. I'm like, you're doing it wrong. And they're like, what? What do you mean? And now I have to physically go over and move your arm here, put your hand here, do this. And then they just look at me like I'm the idiot. And I go, okay, I haven't communicated it clearly. There's also a voice in my head going, you never would have got this much feedback ever before in a different context.
Yes, yeah.
I'm trying to change the jiu-jitsu paradigm of just eat dirt and suffer.
Yes.
But also, it's funny in conversations with Paul, he's kind of like, just who needs stripes? Just leave him on that belt forever. Because that's what he experienced.
That was his upbringing.
It
in
was his
jiu-jitsu.
upbringing, and it's not really fair. People need to know where they're at. You got to kind of word them up. But I kind of was like, okay, I'm going to do the position on you, and I'm going to show you how it works. This is how you do a choke. Do you feel how that is? Okay, good. Now this person's going to do that choke on you. All right. Now you are now going to do the choke. And they're like, oh, okay. So I choked them. I'm like, yes, you choked them. Like, that's why it's called a choke. So anyway, we got there in the end, and I had to rethink it. Like they weren't upset or whatever. It was totally fine. But I did have to think, man, I've got to be a little bit more patient with people. And it's really, I think what it comes down to is I want people to get better faster so I can explain all the other good stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just, people don't really realize it's just so confusing and it's so different. But once you get that first sweep or you get that first submission, you're like, wow, this works. The buy-in is massive. And then it's just off to the races. I don't have to do a whole lot from there other than just provide the technique and give them opportunity to do
base.
it. Yeah.
It's a bit like the training downstairs as well.
Yeah.
If you have someone that's new that comes in, not particularly strong or has no kind of body awareness and hasn't done any physical exercise for some time, you get that base build the awareness, they start to get an understanding of stuff, and then you get out of those fundamentals, and then you get to do some fun, cool stuff.
Yeah.
Some cooler stuff. It's all cool.
I mean, no, I think it can be with jiu-jitsu, it can be way cooler. Like in the same way, gymnastics can be way cooler than just a barbell lift. Like, don't get me wrong, there's beauty in a deadlift,
Yep.
but an Olympic snatch is like, wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And so in terms of getting people, I want people to be as enthusiastic about jiu-jitsu as I am, because I try and think about a world where everybody does jiu-jitsu. The life would be better. People would be so less precious. People would be tougher.
Sure, yeah. People be a bit more durable, a bit more robust.
HR disputes could be solved very easily.
Knee surgeons would be having a great time.
Mate, it would be fantastic. Myotherapy.
Yeah,
Don't worry about
sharks.
Kelly Starrett.
Jared, you better book yourself out for the next few decades.
But how good would it be, right? You just be like, okay, Julian, you got a problem with Karen? Ties off. Let's go. On the floor, double guard pull, take each other's backs. Go. And whoever takes the back and chokes the other person, dispute solved.
Karen though is going to litigate.
But but that's the thing. She's not going to litigate because she does jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
She's going to take spider guard grips and won't let you pass. You'll be stuck there forever.
Yeah, there's it's funny talking about that impatience thing. I think as coaches we can all identify with that. And there's so many layers to the practice of jiu-jitsu that we take for granted.
Yeah.
I think, once you're comfortable, like even as guys who were already into physical kind of training, like Paul, you came up playing rugby and doing boxing, and I played soccer. That was about it. But I used to wrestle with my brother, that kind of thing. And I loved watching UFC. JT, you obviously had your taekwondo background. By the time we got to jiu-jitsu, being rough and physical with someone else was already kind of inbuilt. Like it wasn't a new thing.
Yeah.
Whereas these days, and I think that back then, only people like who had that kind of experience found their way to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, ruffians.
Yeah, that's right.
You had people who weren't afraid to grind their head into another man's crotch.
Exactly, in the name of sport. Yeah. But now it's like, it's so, like, I mean, our goal is to spread it and bring people into the program who have never done that kind of thing. And when you've got someone like that in your class, you're showing them how to do a choke or whatever, and then you're like, they're just, why are they... Fuck, I just need them to sink their teeth into it. Like, give me a bit of intensity. Like, like kind of what you were to like fucking squeeze it. Like, it's a choke, man. Like, put some, but that is us being like, well, actually, they don't even have that layer of software built in, which is taught them
wanting to choke another
grab
human.
something. Yeah, like just that kind of a little bit kind of primal sort of, I don't know, a little bit savage, a little bit mean, but within like a safe
within
realm.
the bounds.
And I think that's just an interesting observation, isn't it? Because you say and you're like, oh, holy shit, so and so, like, man, you think about it. It's usually after the fact. It's usually after the class. You're like, man, imagine what this class experience is like for that person. Like, they are like uncovering some parts of themselves that they've potentially never scratched the surface on. And when you can get that person to like show a bit of savagery, like sink the teeth into it a little bit, like that's a beautiful moment.
Oh man, I had a little bit of that this morning. So this morning it was just me and Artie, and shout out Artie. It's quite an interesting metaphor here. Well, not even a metaphor. I think it's just a parallel, because she is an anaesthetist. So she puts people to sleep for her job. That's a good nickname. And I'm like, that is a great nickname.
That's
bro.
so
if
cool.
she was a WWE wrestler, the anaesthetist.
It's so good. That's good.
Mate, amazing.
Comes out with a needle.
She is.
And it ties up her hair.
For a patented move, sleepy time.
Man, and the long nap, good night. It's one of those things that she is quite a reserved person, and in the morning she's half asleep, and that's fine. I keep threatening to bring her coffee because she's only awake for the last 15 minutes of the class. But anyway, today we went through and I just showed her how to pass guard. And once she worked out, I get around the legs and I pass the guard, she was jumping on my neck. I'm like, okay, now we're going to roll. And I kind of let her pass. She just jumped on my neck, jumped on my arm. There is definitely something there. And I'm like, wow. How it for me, I'm like, that's cool, because she's starting to click into her own power, which she probably didn't even realize. Plus, she needs to strangle her brother, Nando.
Big time.
Well, they don't drill together,
Actually,
do
they did.
Ah, did they?
They have.
That's a breakthrough.
And I think she wants some.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it would be a huge thing for her to be able to try and tap Nando.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Because he's also an anaesthetist. So
It's hilarious, isn't it? Both anaesthetists.
yeah. It's
that's a hard word
Both
to
studying
say.
jiu-jitsu now.
yeah. I mean, obviously
Pathways
Nando's
are gonna meet.
got the jump on her. He's been doing it a bit longer, but she's keen. And it's great. I think, we've all seen those videos, like whatever, BJJ World Star or whatever, unsuspecting, robbers stumble onto MMA fighter or BJJ World Champion and dude just suplexes old mate, throws dude through a window, and these guys are just running away. And you just got some regular looking person who's had some really good grappling or fight training. And I would just love that to be everybody. You cannot, don't get me wrong, I am somebody who struggles with technology, and there's times when I think, man, I should have put more time into learning some administration skills. And actually, it's not that hard. There's a lot of software that can help, and I'm getting better now. But I just think there's people out there who have such specialized knowledge about like spreadsheets. You cannot spreadsheet your way out of a guillotine. Like if someone jumps on your neck, starts choking you, what are you going to do? Like that's serious. Because if that's not a controlled situation like jiu-jitsu, you better react properly. Otherwise, you're stuffed. And I think if you know how to do a double leg and a rear naked choke properly, mate, you are ahead of 95% of everybody, just in terms of just dealing with physical confrontation. Yeah, and I never promote BJJ as self-defense. That's not my thing. That's not my field. I wouldn't attest to that. But definitely in terms of just confidence, if you feel threatened by somebody, you know that you could probably get out of there without hurting them badly and not being hurt too badly yourself.
You know, that idea is really good. I really like that. And if I could give that to everybody, I'd be really happy.
You ever used it? Either of you guys ever used it in a like in a street situation?
Yeah, a little bit.
Talk us through it.
All right, well.
I have not.
Okay, well.
I punched a guy once, but...
Okay.
No.
Yeah, I mean, two of them were actually friends who, associates. People were like, you do this martial arts, BS. Yeah, how about this? All right, let's go there. One of them was actually an initiation into many years ago, initiation into a graffiti crew. Some of them pretty tough guys, and one of them had done a bit of MMA training. And everyone's like, "Oh, yo, man, this guy," and they're like, I won't name him, Caleb. Oh man, Caleb's done some MMA, bro. And I was like,
man, he did like 7 classes,
bro, 100%. And just not technical like scrapper. Honestly, if he'd landed an overhand right, could knock me out. But he just decided he was going to try and grab me and tackle me, and I just went, okay, in front of all the guys. And I think Paul, who's the head of the crew, was like, Caleb, attack James. Like, see what he does, like get a reaction. And I just put him in a guillotine and I slept him. Like, I just standing guillotine, put it on, and he was still trying to like hit me and whatever. And I was like, nah. And I just kind of adjusted to like a front naked choke and just really put it on. And he kind of went limp and started dribbling on himself. He's on the ground. Everyone's like, whoa! And I was like, that was nothing. Like, it wasn't even a problem. The actual time when I was able to use some jiu-jitsu was actually in my hometown. This sounds very strange. It was just, I think, like a junkie guy. I was just in the kind of underpass of the railway station. I'd come back up to the Blue Mountains, and this guy literally was all over the place walking around, and I tried to avoid him, and he shoulder bumped into me, and I was like, sorry, mate. He's like, you got a problem with me? And I was like, no, not at all. I'm walking on, man. I'll see you later. And he's like, nah, you do have a problem with me. And I was like, oh God, I'm not interested in this at all. And he started to wail on me, and I just kind of covered up a bit. And it's a similar deal. It's kind of weird. Like, guys get in close. If they don't have training, they kind of try and hug you. And I just kind of put him into a head arm choke and took him down and put him in a head arm choke. And he was trying to punch me in the face still. And I was like, mate, settle down. Like, calm down. You're going to calm down? No. Just kept trying to hit me in the face. And I was like, had him in the head arm choke. So I started to put him out, and he started to calm down. I'm like, you're going to calm down? He's like, yeah. And then I released him. He got up and he tried to punch me again. And I was like, this idiot. So I kind of snapped him down. I half took him down. I pushed him down on the ground. I didn't have him in knee ride, but I kind of had him on the side control. And I was like, mate, are you going to relax? And his shoe had come off. And he grabbed his shoe and he threw it at my face. And I was like, mate, that's uncalled for. Like, just calm down.
Offensive.
Mate, it's like he kicked me in the face, but he didn't kick me. And I basically put him back into a choke. Now it's more like a rear naked choke, and pretty much half put him to sleep and just said, bro, you just got to calm down, all right? And then I half put him out, and when he kind of came to, had just taken the fight out of him, and he was like, kind of a bit like, oh. I'm like, you right? And he's like, yeah. And just kind of diffused it. So I was like really surprised. Like, I really don't like the whole street confrontation thing. It's not my vibe. I like a really good, skillful exchange when you've got trained people fighting each other. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because that's when you're really seeing something good.
Totally.
But then just street violence is just like,
Yeah. I think a lot of people think people who do jiu-jitsu and martial arts and whatever think that people who do martial arts would do really well on the street, and it's a bit of a side conversation, but it's not necessarily the case. Like, and maybe it's just trying to let everyone know that I practice martial arts to be more confident, and because I enjoy the skill in the sport, and yes, it helps me deal with something if I ever had to, but I have no intention of using it on the street if I can completely avoid it.
Yeah,
because the street is just different.
Yeah, totally.
Man, just people ugly, are wild. It's ugly and it's unpredictable, and I'm only increasing my chances of safety for me and my family. But if there's anything going down, I'm getting the hell out of there.
Yeah,
because you just like old matey them, you might pull out a weapon or something like that.
Yeah, man.
Like,
you get stabbed with a syringe or some shit.
Oh,
and maybe you kick the dude's ass, and but then you're like, wow, now I'm stabbed with fucking someone's blood.
Yeah,
I'm not interested.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, and I
I live a very conservative lifestyle, and I don't go out late. I get up really early. Like my hours compared to other people's social time is pretty antisocial, but that suits me, my day's done by the afternoon, the evening's free to train. And I've actually had this moment a couple of times where I've walked out of training, like in St Kilda, because so where Inkerman Street is basically the Inkerman Hotel is the main street point where people walk up the driveway to Absolute MMA. And it leads into Grey Street, which is one of the most kind of destitute housing commission, prostitutes, people on crack street. It's like half a block away. And I've had moments where I've walked out of training so dead, like just so like couldn't move my arms, just beat to death, no energy. And I've walked out and I've just seen like 3 really rough dudes and I'm like, they can have whatever they want.
Yeah. I got nothing.
I'm not so, I'll just, have it all, boys. Take it.
I've had that same thought where you're like, I've just been training to be like a weapon.
And now.
But right now, anyone could just do whatever they wanted to me. I'm so tired.
I'm so gone.
A low peak of super conversation.
Oh, man.
Like, boys come back in a few days.
Yeah.
The perfect time to attack a martial artist straight after training when they're full of good hormones and dopamine and just, that jiu-jitsu high. But no, I think... I think the misconception is that people would train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for self-defense. Don't get me wrong, there is a component of that, and I know there's lots of schools where they teach that. That's not what I'm about. I teach Jiu-Jitsu for people to overcome their personal issues and improve themselves and find a lot from that. And I'm pretty confident if somebody's like a tough blue belt, they will handle themselves better than someone who's never trained and just full of smoke or full of confidence and just wants to punch on.
Yeah.
And
I found I think too that the way it helps to regulate your anger levels is really important as well, because if you don't have some kind of high intensity physical outlet like that, then there's every chance that you're going to be carrying around all this pent-up stress that you accumulate from work and relationships and whatever, just day-to-day stuff. And this is what you see with people on the street, right? Like, I've been blown away at a few instances recently where people have been really rude to me in traffic, like cut me off and, like stick their finger up, like stuff. And I'm like, and I just think to myself, I'm like, peep later. Like, if you knew what I could do to you, like if I wanted to, like you wouldn't act like that.
no.
But because whatever you're like, I don't know, maybe you're stressed, maybe you're just arrogant, maybe you just got no manners. But I'm like, thankfully, like I'm not particularly stressed, and I know that you just are unaware of the reality of life.
Yeah.
I'm not going to retaliate. But it's like I might approach that situation differently if I didn't do something a few times a week that enabled me to like level out my stress.
Yes.
Like I might be like, I'm gonna fucking chase this guy down and like do some stupid road rage incident, which you see happening all the time, right?
It can happen, yeah.
So I think like both from that perspective of like not getting into trouble yourself, but then also just how you respond when potential issues come your way.
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
And I think
So
also
true.
if you just go people before jiu-jitsu and people after jiu-jitsu, like people in a rush to get to jiu-jitsu, I got to get there, I want to get my jiu-jitsu fix. But then afterwards, it's just like so mellow. It's just, you just hang out, have a chat, lie on the mat, whatever. And then you just drive home just like not a care in the world. And that's an amazing feeling. If people could have more of that in their lives, it would be great. And so when I think about the things that I do outside of jiu-jitsu to help me regulate my crazy brain, meditation is one that helps me a lot, and journaling and trying to just center myself. But jiu-jitsu is forced mindfulness. When you have someone sitting on your chest trying to choke you, all you can think about is, I got to get out of here. I got to survive. And you can't think about your bills. You can't think about what's going on in your life. You can't think about things that aren't relevant to your survival in that moment. But the great thing about it is you're not sitting there going, think of a candle, breathe in through my nose, breathe out through my mouth. Like, you are freaking focused. And when you get out, the joy of getting out, like as much as there's a degree of joy in submitting another human, getting out of that triangle, getting out of that armbar, it's like, yeah, I did it. Oh no, another submission. You know, like you get a little bit over enthusiastic. There is something which is hard to explain. If you're out there listening and you've never done jiu-jitsu and you're thinking, God, these guys are just mad for this thing. Once you have experienced jiu-jitsu and how full on it is, and then you actually apply the knowledge, which is very satisfying, you get the dopamine release, serotonin release of reward, which is, hey, that worked. And then 2, you get that connection of really physical, strong closeness with another human who isn't necessarily like your intimate partner, but in that moment, you're up close and personal. When it's all done, that's an amazing experience. Like just 5 minutes of that is crazy. And I mean, I don't know about you, Paul. I don't know when you started, but I know that not my first experience of jiu-jitsu, not my first class, but after a couple of classes, I was like, wow, this is really powerful. I have to do this. And I think a lot of people get that. Did you have an experience like that, Paul?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Just like that happens all the time, I guess, when you learn something. But it was a while ago, as you pointed out before, both of you.
I didn't say shit,
you
mate.
know, when someone...
He's feeling that,
Well, I just asked the question, yeah. Paul's fucking
feeling
flash
the
these
heat
guys.
over here.
Paul's like, come to Fight Factory, bruh.
All right. I don't know if you want these legs, bro.
You want me to DC you, bruh? You want to get DC, bruh?
You want me to say about the light bulb out, bro? You want to blow your light bulb out? When someone taught me how to sweep, I always thought sweeping was a really satisfying thing. Yeah, like when you learn a sweep and it kind of whatever if it's scissor or it's capturing, you know, whatever, and when it teeters over, you're like, whoa, shit, that was really efficient. That's very satisfying. In the same way when you learn a throw and you're drilling it and you feel those weight shifts. And, you know, it's laborious at first, and then you like get your feet underneath deeper and your hips are under, and then it's super efficient, and you just hear them go, whoop, bang, and then they slap you like, oh, that's fucking rad.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. And, you know, and then say, for instance, if you do that live from the drilling, then that's the raddest part. You're like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
And the same way with Fight Factory, when you learn something and then you're setting it up and you're pouring away and you're setting it up and then bang. That is so satisfying. It really is. And and as you said before, the defensive stuff is very satisfying too, when you can defend and overcome. You know, maybe it's someone that always is very difficult for you and has, you know, something on you, whether it's size or they're just better skilled and they use something and you figure it out. It's very satisfying. Yeah.
I mean, I like to frustrate people. That's kind of my hobby.
Yes.
It's just causing
You're a
infuriation.
fucking red belt. At that one.
I think it's more that I'm a red
On and
belt
off
at
the mat.
infuriating you, Joe.
Grandmaster JT.
Fantastic.
But it's one of those things, right? Because I had said this to a client of mine many years ago. They go, that's not a word. I'm like, man.
Infuriate?
No. Wait for it. So I adversify people's lives. So adversity and diversify.
That's an app you need to develop.
Adversify. If you want a little bit, 5 minutes of frustration every day, listen to my voice. So I adversify my students' lives. So I'll let them get submissions and then I'll just work my way out of it. And they're like, oh, so close. You weren't. Because there is a bit of that. Like as much as I do what I can to kind of, you know, smooth the way in, you know, you catch, okay, even though the saying's a bit redundant, you know, they say you catch more flies with honey, whatever. If you're nicer, you get more people in. But in truth, jiu-jitsu is not an easy thing. So you got to push people. You got to kind of G them up a bit to be tough and try and do that in subtle ways. And I do that through low level kind of like, you know, poking the bear a little bit, find people's sore spot and work it a little just to see how they respond, because it's important for them to know that it's not personal and that there will be times when they're going to be under physical duress and they have to stay calm. So if you can't stay calm under somebody just talking to you, how are you going to stay calm when you've got someone like basically with 20 kilos of belly fat on your face, they haven't worn a rashie and they've got a sweaty stomach,
No shower.
got hairs in your face, and you're actually just trying to get a little bit of breath. You know, in movies when
Motherfucker's hotboxing me.
yeah,
I hate that.
you know, in movies like the car's sinking, there's that bit of oxygen at the back of the car, and the hero or protagonist will just take that little last sip of
That's
air.
nightmarish, those scenes.
Yeah, right. That's how it feels under
chest tight.
big man side control. You've just got big country Roy Nelson belly on you, and you've got to just make a little bit of space, and then get back under and try and go to work.
Adam Childs is able to put a little bit of that on me.
Yeah, look, I mean, he's got that little dad bod belly, but that side control pressure,
Wow.
it's tough.
And
And
see you with that thing.
man, for all of you out there who are not privy to the in joke, which is being DC'd, there is currently a rerun of the best of Brown Cardigan.
Yeah, I think it's like their top 100 posts this
Top
year.
100, and there is a moment where you guys could probably Google, do you want to get DC'd?
Yeah, I don't know if he's referring to direct current or what, but it's
Or DC.
the guy with his fists up
Daniel
in the air.
Cormier.
Yeah,
And he's looking at a guy.
and he's got one gardening
threatening.
glove on.
Yeah. Do you want to get
It's-
DC'd?
and
Blah.
It's a video of a street altercation.
Yeah.
Someone's filmed and it's
Anyway.
two guys kind of shaping up.
Yeah,
It's a bit sad, but it's also hilarious.
It is hilarious.
I got a Jits self-defense street story I want to
Please,
share with you guys.
yes.
It wasn't me under threat. It was at Bondi back in the day, and there was a group of us. It was a big group of people. Pub had closed, and a bunch of people had moved up to can't remember what it was, kebab shop or something. It's a big kind of line. It was about 6 people wide, probably sort of 10 people deep, all lined up at the window to get some food from this place, and that becomes like the gathering spot. There's probably about 30, 40 people kind of hanging around, and there were 2 guys who were just getting into an argument with another dude. And the dude was with his girlfriend. And I'd seen him, he was a bit of a Bondi guy. I don't know who he is, but he was a bit of a local dude around there. Anyway, these 2 guys are behind him and his girlfriend. And they're getting in. He's kind of turning around being like, yeah, fuck off, mate, whatever. And they're like, blah, blah, blah. And he's, kind of talking shit to him. And he's having a go. And he turns around and says something to one of them, and it turns into a bit of a scuffle. Yeah. And he kind of pushes the guy away or whatever, and the situation seems to calm down. And I'm behind these guys, so right. I'm right there.
Front
and
center.
the situation seems to calm down. The 2 guys kind of just peter out and disappear, and then a moment later they come back, and one of them gets back in front of me and starts getting in the dude's face again. And then, so those 2 engage in just another verbal battle. And then the other guy turns up and he's comes in right in front of me, and he's got a bottle in his hand.
Oh no!
And he's about to bottle this dude in the back of the head. And I'm like, fuck. And at that moment, you're like, oh, this is really serious.
Yep.
And he starts to move in. And I've already kind of looked at my mum. I think I'm with Rob Norman, and Rob's like, oh, fuck. And it's like, oh, shit. And so I just throw a rear naked choke on this guy.
Nice.
And I drag him out of the group.
Yes.
And I just squeeze it. I squeeze it. I can't remember. I use it to control him. And then I just squeezed it really hard for a few seconds, and he goes limp.
Nice.
And then I ease him to the floor. And while that's happening, his mate's still having a verbal argument with old mate. And his friend looks over as he's in the verbal thing and sees his buddy on the ground. Yeah, and I'm just kind of standing there, and he's like, oh, fuck, what's happened? And he runs over.
You're like, I don't know what happened.
Yeah, and I'm just kind of standing there oh, is it on? And the dude on the ground, he gets up and he's like, what the fuck did you do to me, man? And I'm like, relax, man, relax. And then the other guy's like, let's get the fuck out of here. And they run away.
Nice.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, that was perfect. But the thing that always got me about it was that old mate who was about to get glassed knew nothing of it.
Wow.
And he was kind of swanning around yeah, I just fucking scared those 2 lads away. And I'm like, bro, you're about to get glassed in the back of the head.
Oh, damn.
I didn't know. I didn't talk to him. I was just like, oh, whatever, let's get our kebabs and go.
Not all Jungle Brothers wear capes.
Right?
So he didn't swing the ball around trying to hit you. He just
coming
kind of
for it.
dropped it.
It was by his hand, and it was that moment where you're like, he's about to strike the dude.
So, yeah.
And then I just went, but, and just cut it just.
But he couldn't have reached around and hit you with the bottle.
No, I think he dropped it, and he was trying to stop his neck.
Hands up. Yeah.
Yeah, trying to defend that.
That's
shot.
Wow,
so
that's
good.
a good. I didn't know that
Perfect,
story.
man.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really a big thing at the time, and I was probably drunk. It's all a bit of a haze, but
So
yeah.
good.
Yeah, I was like, but lucky, like came in handy for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's probably what people underestimate is that, people love boxing. People love kickboxing. It makes sense to punch and kick, right? But in truth, if you take a hard hit to the head, and I've had a couple, it's not a good vibe. Concussions, whatever, fractured orbitals, broken noses, losing teeth, not much fun. Getting choked out's not that bad. Like if
No,
you
it's
get
comparatively gentle.
yeah, and you're not
You do him
getting
a
the same
favour.
level of brain damage. You know what I mean? Like if anything, if you go out only for you're just kind of out and then you're back. There's no real brain death there. So you're not getting a concussion. So even though it's I wouldn't want to do that jiu-jitsu stuff. That's so rough. But yeah, I'll do boxing and I'll take hits to the head.
Yeah,
You know?
I put my kid in a rugby team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's just one of those things is that I would definitely, if I was thinking about my kid, I'd rather have them wrestle or do judo or do BJJ over a striking art just for their brain. So I think that to take that, if you've never done jiu-jitsu, I'm going to say that for your brain health, not necessarily your joint health, you do get a few lumps and bumps with joints and knees and ankles and things, but definitely if you value your brain and you want to do a martial art, I think jiu-jitsu is the right art.
I mean, thinking too, like in that situation, say I had have been like a boxer or something, and I'm
you
like,
just try to hit
oh,
him
I'm just
off.
going to fucking punch this dude.
Yeah.
Then it's on.
Yeah.
Then everyone starts getting
And
hit.
then he swings the bottle on
Yeah,
you
like it's a
and-
total mess, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, you don't want to go to that. Whereas like the grapple thing, being able to control someone, maybe apply a choke or a joint lock, it is the most passive way to be dominant in that situation.
Yeah, and you diffuse that situation. You
Yeah.
save the day, Joe.
I saved the fucking day.
That's a good
I
one.
think I still see that guy around every now and again, and I always want to tell him,
Mate,
I'm
I
"Nah, fuck
saved you."
Yeah, I carry that one to the grave.
You owe me, homie.
He might be listening to this podcast, and we've got a lot of listeners, man.
Bruh, come
if
in.
you know that guy,
Tell that guy.
tell that guy.
Yeah, he's,
Oh,
that guy,
Joey over
he's
here.
that guy at Bondi that you always see when you're at Bondi.
That used to be you.
Looks like he surfs a bit. Yeah, trains sometimes. Yeah, it was me.
Oh wow, that's a good story.
That's such a
wouldn't
good
have.
story.
Yeah, I wouldn't have reacted that way. But it's natural for you to that's.
And it was only,
was very
I
instinctual.
wasn't going to get involved. It was only once the threat of, oh, fuck, this dude's going to get cut. Like this is actually going to turn really nasty real quick. And I am the first person in line. Like,
And you've seen it.
yeah, I probably would have avoided it otherwise. If I had been a few people back, I
Few
would have
less
been like,
drinks.
Yeah, a few less drinks. It was just that I was like, right place, right time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Oh, yeah.
You heard it here first.
That's right, guys.
That's awesome.
Jungle Brothers exclusive.
But
So what's the process then for like, for someone that's coming in, say something I want to touch on with the training at Jungle Brothers, we have the jiu-jitsu, we have the stuff going on downstairs, which is very unique because when you train just jiu-jitsu, you just turn up to the academy and all that's on offer is jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So you're like, well, great. For me to engage with this community, I'm going to do the class. Whereas here, you can engage with the community. You can do a swole class. You
Yep.
could do lift. You could do a stretch class. You could go up and do jits. There's a lot of options on the plate, which is really beautiful. But it also means that, like, say for you as a coach up in the jiu-jitsu program, you see someone that you're like, oh, like Artie's doing really well. I hope she's back at class tonight. And then you're like, oh, she's downstairs doing stretch class. You're like, why is she not up here working on her jiu-jitsu? Yeah. Like there's a different thing there from a coach's perspective, isn't
yeah.
there?
And look, I actually think it's good. I mean, what that means is the JITS program grows a little bit slower because you haven't got like hardcore. I mean, we have, like we said, we have our dedicated women, savage sisters who love to train all the time. But what that means is we have more well-balanced people. So we've got people who are looking after their bodies. They are getting stronger, getting more flexible, but they're also doing jiu-jitsu. Ultimately, and we were like touching on this before, Joe, that is more of an optimum. That's good. Even though it means the progress is slower, it's more sustainable. You haven't got people jumping in, frothing out, and then getting like a super bad injury 6 months in because they're not looking after their body. And I think that is a huge value in the culture of Jungle Brothers, is that people are here for their health as well as their enjoyment. And that means if that means we have less, mat rat killers, it doesn't matter because we got good, healthy people learning good jiu-jitsu. And if they're staying uninjured and they're staying healthy, they're going to learn better. Even if their path is a fraction longer, they'll enjoy it more. And I think the model is actually great. So even though I love me some hardcore porrada, I think it's short-lived. It's just it's a limited vision.
That's a jiu-jitsu term thrown around there, meaning fight.
Yeah, just going hard.
Getting after it.
Yeah, and you're sure I love hardcore things. I love anything hardcore because like it's sensational. It gets you going. Like it's cool, right? But in truth, that's not the best way to live a life. And definitely, if I had been smarter about my jiu-jitsu, I think I would have had less injuries. And yeah, I would say in the last 13 years, I've spent at least 2.5 to 3 years off the mat with serious injury. And that's wasted time. Mm. So yeah, I think what we have here at Jungle Brothers is unique and great. And I'd like to see more of it. And we are seeing more of it. Shout out to Garage Jiu-Jitsu Wollongong.
Yeah.
Because Joey, you went down there, didn't you? You saw what they were.
Yep. Caught up with Ryan, runs the gym down there. Good man. Really, really cool little gym. Really cool squad. And yeah, I mean, in terms of like those guys adopting like what we've been putting out through Bulletproof for BJJ, which is JT and my little side hustle. Those guys are like, they're doing it. He's got a little gym space next to the mats and all these members are like doing some kettlebell stuff, doing some calisthenics, stretching. And that's like culturally, that's really what we're speaking to. It's like what we're trying to do at Jungle Brothers on a larger scale. Mm. And these guys are starting to adopt a bit of that. You know, you could say that like our gym was typically more like strength and conditioning centric with, you know, fight stuff tacked on. And then now it's starting to get into more of a balance. At a gym like that, it's obviously more fight centric, but even just a little bit of that stuff thrown onto the side, if it can flourish, I think it just means your member base stays so much healthier.
Yeah.
They stay in the game, right? And that's the thing. Everyone loves jiu-jitsu, but if you just train it all the time, you end up being forced out of it at some point for the majority of people.
Yeah.
One thing I really take for granted, but I think about it now, is the movement screen. And I think back, oh, shit. I moved okay when I first started jiu-jitsu, but, you know, there's some train wrecks walking around and they go in, they're interested, and it's like, what size gear you? You know, and you're on
tonight. Yeah.
Whereas like I couldn't allow someone to jump even into any movement without me, you know, even if it's friends at the park or something like that. On holidays, I'm not going to just get a family member. Okay, do this little workout with it. Fuck, you got to be responsible about how you move, right?
Man, I have a great story about
Bang.
this. Happened last Friday. Shout out Johnny Dozan from my BJJ. Back problems, all kinds of issues, coming to see me, doing Bulletproof. Can barely lift a 32 kilo kettlebell for a kettlebell deadlift. Comes to a Friday night open mat, puts the gi on. Me and Nate having a roll. He warms up well, which is good. And I said, Johnny, take it easy. We're not, you know, we're just, you know, I don't want you to get an injury here. Just have a roll, you know. I'm in spider guard. He picks me up off the ground, whips my leg to the side like he is going to pass my guard. And I started laughing. I broke out. I was like, stop.
That's so funny.
We need to start doing your S&C wearing a gi, mate, because you just deadlifted 92 kilos and you can't deadlift a 32 kilo kettlebell. He's like, no, I felt good, you know. Johnny, what are you doing?
It doesn't match up at all.
No, it just doesn't, because when he's in the gi, he feels like he's in his Superman suit or something, right? And what's so funny to me is there's people out there training jiu-jitsu who wouldn't want to deadlift or hurt my back. But they get upside down under some huge human and do something crazy because under the banner of jiu-jitsu, it's all good. And in truth, it's not. And I think that what is so good is that more and more people are paying attention to these things. And what we're doing is creating a structure for people to be able to do more of that so that their bodies are in good nick and they can learn jiu-jitsu and it's good times for everyone.
Yeah, there's it is... Like the standard thing in our gym is if you come in, you want to train, you have a consult with one of us, and then you go through 3 personal training sessions, which the first one of those is the movement screen that Paulie's talking about. And then after you've done that and we've given you, like, imparted this prerequisite knowledge on you and also assessed where you're honestly at, then you can start classes, right? But you compare that to like what happens at a standard jiu-jitsu academy, and it's like you walk in off the street and it's like, mate, jump in. First class is free. Have a great time. And it's like, there's something nice about that, in that freedom and openness. But it's also like you said, it just, for knowing what we know, it's just irresponsible.
It's reckless.
Oh, man.
It's, yeah, and like
So reckless.
yeah, and I mean we don't want that blood on our hands. Like you don't want someone to come in, get hurt, and be like, oh, well, I just fucked them up.
Yeah.
Because I was, I didn't apply my standards to this this process that they're going through now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's really special, and I see that with, like, I love seeing, like, you, JT, you're doing most of the foundation programs for the people coming into the JITS program here,
Yes,
right?
that's right. Yeah.
It's mad seeing you work with them downstairs, teaching them stuff, assessing them, and then, whatever, half a week later, they're up on the mat starting jiu-jitsu, and you just know that they're starting it in the best way possible.
Yeah.
Like, we're doing everything we can to make sure that they're going to be successful with it.
Yeah, and even though, obviously I have my jiu-jitsu-centric bias, which is, I would love to see them on the mat 3 or 4 times a week if it's possible. But it's actually okay if they're there twice a week, and I know they're actually doing mobility and doing strength work twice a week, or they're coming in and doing another class. Mate, that's awesome. And it just means that we're going to be able to keep people. And I think that's possibly the thing that's not talked about, is how many people we lose to injury. And because bigger gyms, they're big enough for people to get lost. And, here at Jungle Brothers, we're a tight enough community that if someone's not here, we notice it. And there's lots of systems in place to say, hey, what's going on with that person? And every week we're talking about looking after our people. So, I mean, I don't know how easy it is for other gyms to replicate that, but I feel like if we can do it here, and we're not a full-time jiu-jitsu gym, it could definitely be done in other places.
Yeah, I think it's just a culture thing, isn't it? Yeah, I think jiu-jitsu has just been, like, on the whole, has benefited from, like, it's in its infancy.
Yes.
So it's like, yeah, there's no follow-up for people that don't show up. There's minimal follow-up if you get injured. Jump into a class, kind of whatever you like, sort of thing. Whereas you look at the gym game, and it's like it's very competitive.
Yes.
Like, in terms of businesses out there. So you got to do a good job. You got to offer a premium service if you wish to offer a premium service, I guess. Which means following up with people, managing injuries properly, like all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, I like that we've been able to apply that to the whole JITS thing.
Definitely.
Raise the standard a bit.
Yeah, state of the art. I think that's a saying that's kind of been lost. But the thing is, like, it's basically looking at what is done as common practice, and we are trying to expand the state of the art, which is the art of jiu-jitsu.
I like that.
That's what we're trying to do.
I like that too.
So for someone, in closing up, for someone who's like listening and thinking, I'd like to give it a try there, like obviously they get in touch with the gym, but say it's a member here and they've been watching it going on and they're like training downstairs and they want to give it a try. How do they go about it?
I think there's 2 options. One is that, we are offering like a jiu-jitsu foundation. That's a bit of a new thing. So if they've never worn a gi and they're like, oh man, I really want to do it, it's an opportunity for them to do a one-on-one session with myself or one of the other coaches and get some orientation, learn how to tie their belt, learn some terminology, demystify this thing a bit so that when they come to the class, they're like, oh, they don't feel as alien. They feel a bit more integrated. And then also give them an opportunity to get a gi too. So if they're like, yeah, I like this thing, I've tried it, I want to do this thing, they have an opportunity to get a gi on discount. But then also, if you are someone who's trained regularly and maybe you've tried jiu-jitsu somewhere else and you're thinking about coming here, you can just come to one of our fundamentals class. It's good for you to contact us first because I'll make sure I'm here to introduce you. I don't teach every class, but I always try and make sure that I'm a point of contact and be able to introduce them to the instructors. I mean, instructors here will know if you're not, one of our regular people. And yeah, it's just making sure that you get looked after. Because I think that's the vibe here at Jungle Brothers is that you don't just walk in like a stranger. It's like, yeah, you're walking into a house and everyone lives here and you get introduced to people and it's, it's a friendly vibe. So I think it's easy enough for people to reach out either via email or whatever it might be, but we are definitely cultivating more of a jiu-jitsu specific integration. So people feel like, yeah, I can come here. I feel good here. Good times.
I like that. Guys, if you are interested in that, or you want to know anything about our training, you can get us junglebrothers.com, or you can get us on the Instagram at Jungle Brothers Movement. And if you want to know anything about the jiu-jitsu or the bodyweight strength or the foundation program, just hit us on any of those avenues. Send us a DM or send us an email through the website, and we'll get back in touch to have a bit of a chat with you. Where can people find your stuff, JT? On the socials?
If people want to contact me on Instagram, it's at JT_tenacity. On Facebook, it's James Tenacity Tomlinson. And yeah, I mean, people can find me here at Jungle Brothers. And also, you know, if you want to know more about the S&C stuff for BJJ, it's at Bulletproof for BJJ. But yeah, I mean, I'm here. The best way for you to find out what I'm doing is come see me at Jungle Brothers. That's the easiest way. But boys, thank you so much for having me on. It's great to be back on the JB's podcast and just riffing with you guys.
Catching up with Joe.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's good to chat.
It's been too long.
Looking forward to hanging out in a couple of hours.
Yeah. Hell yeah. No, it's great to have you here this year as a full-timer, and Matt, to have you on the potty.
Yeah, my pleasure. Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, boys. Appreciate it. Guys, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed that episode, please share it with a friend. Take a screenshot of it. Tag us, Instagram it. Do something. Helps us support the show. Hope you guys love it. Thank you to Panavore, who I didn't drink the coffee today because I was pre-caffeinated, but the boys have been sipping on the delicious brew.
It was fantastic.
It's good coffee, huh? Make sure you check them out if you're ever in Pagewood. And we'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Peace.